I'm Dr. Allan Perel, and this is Conversations in Medicine. Hi, I'm Dr. Allan Perel, and this is Conversations in Medicine. This program brings cutting-edge medical topics to the Staten Island and tri-state community. We have a wonderful, little bit of a different kind of a show tonight, and I really want to thank my guests who are going to be here to talk about martial arts for all ages. Sometimes we think about the martial arts and we watch television shows and things like Bruce Lee and jumping around, but the self-discipline and the way people do things with exercise programs, meditation, really comes in to help the well-being, and that's why it's part of Conversations in Medicine. So my guests here, first I want to introduce the Sifu, which is a grand leader or teacher, master of martial arts, Jack Newman.
Thank you, good evening.
And Dr. Neil Mitnick, who's a student and a sensei, I think you mentioned, a teacher also. And I have to say that, for full disclosure, my children went to see Sifu Jack and had a wonderful experience for a number of years. So we're going to talk about martial arts, and we want to take some of the mystery out of it, and even at the end have a little something for all of our couch potatoes who are watching the show at home, and see if there's something they could do to try to make their well-being a little bit better. So Jack, please tell us a little bit, what are martial arts and what's the concept of it?
Well, by definition, martial arts is martial meaning warlike, and art is any discipline that you study. So, for instance, when martial law is declared, the army goes out and keeps peace. So the art is a martial in sense that it's basically teaching self-defense, both self-defense and self-offense if need be.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about, and again, back to someone who's really not educated in this field. I hear about karate,
Right.
Tai Chi, Jiu-Jitsu, all kinds of other things, and I don't know the differences between them. Could you tell us a little bit?
Under the umbrella of martial arts, there are various disciplines coming from different parts of the world. Most people think that the martial arts emanated from the Asian countries. So we have karate. The word means karate, empty hand, is being warlike with no weapons, empty hand. Jiu-Jitsu is sort of like floor fighting, almost like a wrestling type thing, which is very popular in South America now, and particularly in Brazil. And then you have Judo, which is from Japan, throwing using leverage to take an opponent down onto the ground. There are many other disciplines from Thailand called Muay Thai, and it goes on and on and on. Every one of them has a different discipline of how to apply self-defense and self-offense.
So Neil, tell me a little bit about you. I know you're a dentist, and my dentist, and someone who's a good friend. How did you decide to go into or work in martial arts or work out with martial arts?
I was exposed to it in high school, at the first day of high school, and I took to it like a fish to water. I really loved doing it. I liked the discipline. I liked the fact that you're always learning something new. I liked practicing it. I liked the fighting, sorry, but I did. And I just, it's my life. It's a big part of my life. It's how I live.
That's marvelous. So Jack, if someone has a child and they want to be involved in martial arts, actually, maybe I'll ask the first question. Why would a parent take a child from martial arts?
Well, I'll qualify that by saying that the primary purpose of sending a child to a martial arts class is not the fighting aspect. You don't want your child to be taught to fight. You want to instill in your child a sense of self-worth, self-control, and discipline. And only when they have those items and they understand it, then they can learn the physical aspects of martial arts, the kick, punch, block, and other things that they might use if there's an altercation. And I don't mean a schoolyard altercation, I mean an emergency type. I'm in trouble over here and I need to extricate myself from this dangerous situation. Personally, I do not advocate schoolyard fighting. I'll probably mention later, I teach more avoidance as opposed to being offensive. But the primary reason why you should send your child to a martial arts class, a good martial arts class, which we can define in a moment, is for what I mentioned earlier: discipline, self-control, and self-worth.
How do you pick one? And again, whether it's you or Neil, you run a school, Torah
Right.
Dojo,
Right.
which is one of the synagogues out here on Staten Island.
Exactly.
So tell me, how do you figure that out?
They're all good, but how do you know? There are a lot of commercial schools, storefront type schools. A parent should know that the sensei, the teacher who runs the school, should allow the child and the parent to observe at least 1 or 2 classes, hopefully free of charge. And then if there is some contractual obligation long-term, I would stay away from that as well. I can't advocate how other people run their schools, but you have to observe a class, get to know the teacher, see how the class is run, and to see whether it could be a safe environment, which is first and foremost for a child in that dojo.
Also, reputation is important. Sifu Jack has a stellar reputation. What are you teaching for 40 years, 30 years?
Approaching 40 years.
Yeah, it's a really long time, and he's, spotless record. So his students are well known. It's.
So how did you decide, Neil, that you wanted to go into this type of martial art, and at this school?
I started at MTA, which is Yeshiva University. It was taught there. And I took a shine. The teacher and I had a chemistry. I just loved the way he taught. I loved what he was saying, and I loved his methodology. I don't want to compare it to any particular armed forces. I'm not saying it's like the Marines boot camp. It was, but very tough love kind of a school up there at that time. That's not how it is in Brooklyn, and how it has been. When I moved to Staten Island, I stayed within the same school, and I went to Sifu Jack's teacher, Jeffrey Glanz. Marvelous martial artist, wonderful guy, completely different approach. Completely different approach. Kinder, gentler, nicer, and I like that better, actually.
Okay.
And Sifu Jack himself takes it up a notch. Just wonderful dojo to go to.
And dojo means?
Karate school, yeah.
A place.
Any room where you study the martial arts.
Yeah.
So Jack, what are the credentials? Is there credentialing, or how does someone name themselves as a Sifu?
Right.
How do you get there?
Well, certainly with the permission of your teacher. In our system, I think I was the exception. I was a purple belt, which was like 2 levels removed from black. My teacher, Jeffrey Glanz, did not want to teach in the neighborhood in which he lived. He lived in Staten Island as well, for various reasons. So he asked me, actually 3 years into the martial arts, to take over the children's class. So again, you don't have to be a black belt to teach. In our system, we prefer brown or above. You don't get the title of sensei teacher until you are a black belt. But we can send out students who are a brown belt and teach under my auspices. And we have in New Jersey, Brooklyn, and Staten Island other students of mine that teach Torah Dojo martial arts under my auspices.
So tell me about belts. I mean, there's always the color.
The belting is
it competitive?
Right.
I'm trying to get a feel, because I
Right.
remember my kids, when they got different colored belts, were very proud of themselves.
Exactly. In Japan, there was really no belts. They just wore the karate gi meaning a karate uniform, GI, has nothing to do with the Army, it's a gi. And when you walked into the dojo, you knew right away who the teacher was, who his assistant was, and who the beginners were. Unfortunately, in America, we're very materialistic. And we need trophies, we need something tangible to show our accomplishments. So really the belting system is really an American invention. Technically, it goes from white, yellow, green, purple. In our system, there's 3 levels of brown, and then black, and then various degrees of black. For the children, because the distance between each of the adult belts, it could be a year, year and a half, 2, maybe even more years, the children will lose patience and they'll get bored. So we've put in intermediate belts. Real belts, they have to accomplish things that, the curriculum. So we have certainly white, then we have an orange, yellow, blue, green, red, purple, brown, and then up to black belts.
A lot of colors.
A lot of colors.
So let's get to the substance.
Yes.
Tell us about the discipline of what you teach and give us some examples of it. And again, we'll actually have a little demonstration a little bit later.
Sure.
Tell me about what you're teaching in both in the physical, the spiritual, the emotional, the powers.
Sure.
So tell us a little bit about it.
Okay, certainly there's the physical aspect. There is, teaching of the basic techniques of punch, block, kick, punch, block, punch, and kick. Okay, and then there is something called kata, K-A-T-A, and kata is basically a dance-like form showing various movements of imaginary opponents, moving from front to back, left to right, diagonally, and so on and so forth. There are basic kata, and there are more advanced katas as you get higher in rank. And each of them have a particular goal in mind. As you get into the higher ranks, there are many katas that we do that imitate animals, like snake and bear, crane. There's a crane system. There's tiger, there's leopard, and it goes on and on and on and on. And we mimic these movements as a self-defense and self-offense type of discipline. But for the children, we have the same curriculum, but as I mentioned before, the physical part, although we do get into it, is really secondary. What I like to instill in the children is safety inside the dojo, safety in the streets, being aware of their surroundings. It goes together with their self-control, self-discipline, and self-worth, and teaching a child how to walk away from a confrontation if they are confronted with a situation. Bullying, of course, has been a big topic, and how to respond to it. And fighting back is not the first answer. Mm-hmm. So I give them the, quote unquote, the ammunition only in an emergency. And again, I'm not talking about schoolyard stuff and fooling around with friends. I'm talking about a real emergency. And we've heard some horror stories about children being kidnapped and so on and so forth. And we teach them how to do that. We teach them how to walk in the street, walk in numbers, not to walk in dark, not to take shortcuts. Things of that nature. How to yell for help, but not using the word help ever.
Mm-hmm. We were talking before the show about external energies, internal energies, and I think we have a demonstration a little bit. Tell us a little bit. We see so much about meditation.
Yes.
TM, different things, hypnosis, relaxation techniques.
Sure.
And as a neurologist, I'm a big proponent of this.
Right.
People with migraine headaches, people with anxiety.
Right.
There are ways that people can control many of the things that go on in their body.
Right.
And as I said, someone who's been at your dojo, the idea of controlling even your heart rate, relaxation techniques, being able to control your body. And we're talking, and what I want to do is take this from an esoteric conversation to something that people who out here are saying, what is he talking about?
Right.
What kind of techniques could they do? Where does it really help? And what does he actually do? We talk about kata, form. What is he talking about?
Right.
So let's move it a little bit into what they actually do. And Niels could be showing us some things too.
So let's start from the top down, and everybody's familiar with Star Wars, and may the Force be with you. Everybody has a force. We don't call it the force. Everybody has within them the concept of called chi, C-H-I. It's called either ki or chi. We refer to as chi. It's not something you can touch, not something you can x-ray and see inside the body. It's something that is internal in every human being. Through our martial arts and others, we tap into this chi, this energy field. Think of it as a ball of atoms and protons and neutrons running around, and constantly moving. We find the chi, what we call the tantien or dantien, which is about an inch below your belly button. Again, you can't see it, you can't feel it, you can't x-ray it. But we have certain techniques, which I'll explain in a moment, of how to tap into it and allow this chi to travel into your hands, into your body, into your feet, and so on. And this chi can either have constructive properties, meaning there are a lot of massaging, getting the chi into your hands, heat, so on, and energy, and use it for healing purposes. And then, of course, there's a destructive part, where you see people break stones and boards and rocks and so on. That is the chi emanating out of the hands and doing destructive things in nature.
So let's talk about how to have supportive.
Exactly.
So instead of destructive portions, and maybe I'll ask Neil. So when people break boards, I mean, is it just a macho thing? Is it just something to make the kids feel happy? What's the story with that?
First of all, a person who's untrained, if they do break a board, they're very lucky because they're more likely going to hurt themselves. Mm-hmm. You have to be prepared physically, so we do push-ups on the knuckles, things like that. A lot of physical training involved in martial arts, and especially for beginners, they have to adapt to that. And that gets them ready, because you could pull a muscle, if you're not stretched, if you're not strong enough.
That's something you should do at home.
Conditioning. No, that's done in class,
Right.
and at home. They say the lesson you pay for, the practice is free. Mm-hmm. So I want to take advantage. There's a sale on free practice. So I practice a lot. So that's the first thing. Someone who's uninitiated has to, or it's in their best interest to go through the motions of physically conditioning their body. So that's step one. Step two, and this is where the actual, how many boards can you break? The technique is very important. And when you're teaching a child, if they do something wrong, if they lose their concentration as they're hitting a board, they'll hurt themselves. So it's got to be handled very delicately. With adults, they go off to their own devices, they hurt themselves, they learn the hard way. Tough love. But with kids, you have to be very careful because they get hurt easily.
So Jack, let's go back to the positive aspects of chi, this internal energy.
Right.
And again, I'm just so interested in my patients who have high blood pressure, who have migraine headaches. And we talk about hypnosis, we talk about different types of meditation. How is this, our wonderful viewing audience, how could they tap into that? And again, I know we need a sensei and a sifu, but even if they're home now, is there something they could do to tap into this to make themselves feel better?
Absolutely. Certainly there are videos and tapes and things you can watch, pretty much like aerobic exercises and so on and so forth. But that has a limited life. Certainly you need a qualified teacher to help you along that path. But if you don't have a teacher and you want to do something at home that's probably not that strenuous, there's basically two things I would recommend. One is stretching. And you don't need to even stand up to stretching. People who travel a lot on airplanes, you're sitting for a long time. So they show you how to,
and show people,
stretching like that. And so like, and I'm sitting. Right. And if you're sitting, you can stretch your leg out and hold it out off the ground. That'll stretch some of the muscles and so on and so on. So you could stay seated and do lots of movements, to get the blood flowing. Secondly is breathing. I'm a big proponent of breathing. And there are various ways of breathing. There is deep breathing. There is what we call measured breathing. And the reason why breathing is so important is because as a doctors, the more oxygen you take in, the more oxygenated your muscles and your limbs become, and it's just very healthful. And lung capacity in terms of stamina and so on is very, very important. Believe it or not, I used to, just a side note if I may, I used to smoke. Silly me, So I went to a class and I was taught how to stop smoking. but he taught us how to breathe. And we breathe very shallowly. As I'm talking or just walking down the street, we do not use the maximum capacity of our lungs for to be healthful. So we teach the children and the adults how to take in maximum amount of air and expel a maximum amount of carbon dioxide, which is the normal way of breathing. But we stretch our lungs pretty much how we stretch our muscles. And I think that's very, very important, especially for those of us who are getting a little bit older.
I know you're going to show us something, and we mentioned it, and you and Neil were going to do to show. And again, we're not going to break this table because people at CTV would be very upset with me. Right. So maybe you guys could show us something.
Well, all right,
Tell us
we promised we would stay seated. Again, if I wasn't mentioned before, again, I've been doing this for close to 40 years, both teaching and I'm still a student. There's external energy, there's external strength, and that's, push-ups, sit-ups, weightlifting, and muscle-bound guys, and these guys are very, very strong. I don't do a lot of weightlifting, if at all. If I could do 20 push-ups, that's a lot. But I've been able over the years to tap into my chi and generate it, particularly into my arms, and that's how I've been able to do some of the braking techniques, both on boards and some pieces of tarmac and various other materials, not the table. So I just want to demonstrate here, and this was not pre-planned. This is my fist, as you can see, and I'm making a very tight fist. And what Neil's going to do is, with his right hand, he's going to hold my wrist as tight as he can and hold my tricep. Now, Neil is a strong fellow, physically strong, okay? And he is going to bend my fist towards my elbow. I am going to resist as much as I possibly can. And we're going to do it again. Push. Okay. Now, having done that
was a lot of work.
That's external energy. Now I'm going to release my hand, and I'm just going to take just a few seconds here and allow the chi to flow into my right arm. And Neil's going to do the exact same thing. Keep going. One more time.
I got nothing.
And I've had 2 or 3 people on my right arm do the same thing. And the reason why he was not able to do that is because I've allowed the chi to flow. And by closing the fist, the chi stops here and it becomes external energy. If I let it flow, it continues to rotate. So if I want to punch Neil in the face, okay, I can punch him like so. I would prefer, for maximum damage, to hit him with my open hand, like so. That will generate the chi into his head and do a lot more damage.
So tell me, as not a skeptic of this, because again, I've seen this so many times, but as a scientist, as a neurologist, is there any correlate that you've been able to determine what happens with that? Because again, this is really the scientific basis of it. Why would you be stronger at one moment than another moment? And I understand the concept of chi, but is there anything scientifically that has ever been shown?
Unfortunately, the answer is no. As I mentioned before,
auras, Kirlian photography, I don't know.
As I mentioned before, you can't reach down my throat and pull it out. You can't X-ray it. You can't see it. It's just not there.
And everyone has it.
It's like everyone has it. It's like asking a human being of whatever religion they are, do you have a soul? Well, some people might say no, but most people will say yes. You want to call that your soul? You can call it your soul. Some religions, call it the soul. But it's there. How do I prove it? I can't. Only through experience.
How do you refine it? Maybe that. So we talked about the proof. You said that. So that's the question.
The good question. Let me back up. Now we talked about the children. Okay. Now, what I do with them is a couple of exercises where they stretch a little bit and they breathe and so on and so forth. And then after about 5 or 10 minutes, and this we're talking about 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-olds, I have them put their hands together like so. And then without touching, because once you touch your body and the chi disappears. I said, as they roll like an imaginary ball and so on like this, and I say, push your hands together like so. I said, what do you feel? I feel, it's like something's there. I said, wait a minute, there's nothing there. I said, what else do you feel? Electricity, magnetism. They actually feel tingling in their hands. Okay, that's a 6, 7-year-old. I can get them to do that. An adult, after many, many years of practicing this, they can actually, as I've demonstrated, get the chi to flow into certain parts of the body, giving you more energy, and you can use it any which way you want. There's one other item that we didn't touch upon, I think is very important, especially for people, martial artists and non-martial artists, is the Tai Chi discipline. And Tai Chi is Tai Chi Chuan, grand ultimate boxing. It's a discipline like any other. But we know what it looks like. We've seen pictures of, in China, people out in the park at 3, 4 in the morning doing slow movements, very meditative, very helpful, non-impactful for the joints, breathing, meditation, visualization. It's a phenomenal discipline. And if you're asking me if even a novice or non-martial artist wants to get into something that is martial, but not physical, where you don't have to break a sweat, Tai Chi is very, very
and I'll add to that, as a neurologist who takes care of many people with Parkinson's disease, we have done studies on that. And there's a group out here on Staten Island called the American Parkinson's Disease Association. And every week or every other week they do Tai Chi classes for people who are wheelchair bound, standing up, or mobile, not very mobile. And there's been a plethora of scientific evidence that Tai Chi helps balance.
Notice the name Tai Chi. You asked me to prove Chi.
Right.
It's within the discipline. It's Tai Chi is developing the Chi into these movements meditatively, and the health benefits you can attest to.
Is there a relationship between yoga, Tai Chi, and all these other forms that we deal with?
They're all Eastern arts.
Yes, yes, an art, a discipline.
Eastern arts.
Eastern arts, they become very Americanized.
Jack, first I want to say thank you for the 40 years you've done this work. Neil, it's a pleasure for you to be out. And in the last, say, 30 seconds that we have for our audience, what would you impart to them? Do you think every child or most children should try the martial arts? Should you think that most adults should, if they're couch potatoes, should try to get out and do more?
Well,
so tell us a little bit.
Well, the short answer is yes. The question is that what do you want to get from a martial arts class? You want a black belt? Put in the time, and you can get it done. It'll take time, though. You want to, do calisthenics, push-ups and sit-ups? You can do that in a martial arts class. There's kickboxing. There's just Krav Maga, where you just beat the heck out of each other, and you learn how to fight and defend yourself. I'm not being, it's a great discipline. But the short answer is absolutely. Certainly, there are other things. There's baseball, basketball, but. I don't designate martial arts as a sport. It's a discipline. It's an art, martial arts.
And
the answer is yes.
And you've seen your students do well over years.
I've had 5, 6-year-olds start with me, and they're still with me today.
That's beautiful. I want to thank you both for being here.
Pleasure. Thanks for having us.
I hope we brought to my wonderful audience the idea of what martial arts are, that it's not just getting belts, that it's not just kicking and breaking boards, but it's really the whole person, the whole self, the whole being, both external and internal. And I've seen some tremendous success with it in our patients and our families. So thank you very much. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Doctor.